campaign trail for some candidates.
What's the difference between you and J.D. Vance?
I'm an Ohio guy. You know, been here my whole life and never left, never gave up on Ohio. He has.
He, on the other hand, claimed to be a police officer. He's not, even though he produced a badge on Friday night.
They both have things that I like, but they both have things that I don't like.
Yeah, you just have to pick between them on which stand you want to see more of.
We're live from the battleground states. We welcome you to Red and Blue. I'm Scott McFarland, coming to you from our Washington, D.C. bureau. Thank you for joining us. We are only 22 days away from midterm election day, and millions have already voted in some of the key battleground states. We begin tonight with new CBS News polling on the midterms. Our battleground tracker poll shows Republicans in the lead in the race to control the U.S. House. Our polling estimates Republicans will win 224 seats in the House to the Democrats' 211. That's more than enough for the GOP to take back the majority. We have you covered on many key races with my CBS News colleagues. Anthony Salvanto is in New York City, Nicole Killian is in Atlanta, and Ed O'Keefe will join us from the White House. Let's begin, though, with Executive Director of Elections and Surveys, Anthony Salvanto. Anthony, these numbers are striking. What's behind this estimate Republicans lead in the battle for control of the House?
Hey there, Scott. Look, it's so important. I just loaded this graphic before we even started talking. It's that people say the economy is getting worse. What's happened is that every time we've done a battleground tracker since the baseline we did back in the summer, the Republicans have been losing some ground to the Democrats, but that's stopped. It's stabilized now since the last month, and this is why, because people's views of the economy have gotten worse. And the other thing that I want to point out is people say that gas prices in their area are going up now, and that's a change from the summer. The other part of that, though, Scott, I should add is when you talk about the economy and the Republicans doing better, you need to understand why people might connect the two politically. And so it's this. I ask people, who's responsible for that? And there are more people who feel like Democratic policies have harmed the economy more than they've helped it. They're in power. That's how people reason. They're feeling the pinch. So they're going to, at least some of them are going to blame the party in power, Scott.
There was that moment in August where abortion rights seemed to transcend the economy in a special election in New York and in some of the polling. Has that moment evaporated?
Well, let's look at this. Take the people who say that abortion is very important in their vote, and those numbers have stabilized, in fact, even gone down a little bit. 59% in September, 54% now. What I think that tells you politically is we know that Democrats are motivated on this. We know that there are strong numbers for Democratic votes among those who say it's very important. However, they've been trying to make this election more about the abortion issue, and this suggests that the economy is swamping that a little bit right now. It's always been a question of what is this election about, and that economy versus the abortion split starts to tell the tale, Scott.
Anthony Salvanto in New York. Huge, impactful numbers in the battleground tracker poll. Now we'll send you back to work. Thank you very much. Well, the early voting for some midterm elections has already begun. That includes in Georgia. Polls will stay open for parts of the next 3 weeks through November 8th. My fellow CBS News congressional correspondent Nicole Killian is in Atlanta for us, covering this race closely. Nicole, you've been on the ground, talked to Senator Warnock. What's your latest impression of where this pivotal race stands?
Well, you know, he cast his vote early today, as many people have with the start of early voting here in Georgia, and he told me that he's feeling great about the race. But obviously, a lot of the talk right now here on the ground has to do with that debate that he was in with Herschel Walker over the weekend on Friday night, where really this was the first opportunity for voters to see both candidates side by side. And obviously, there were several moments that stuck out of the debate. One of them in particular was where both candidates tangled over the issue of law enforcement, and Herschel Walker flashed a prop badge. I asked Senator Warnock about what went through his mind when that happened. Take a listen.
I think what we saw clearly Friday night and last night is that my opponent, Herschel Walker, is not ready. I pointed out the fact that he claimed to be in law enforcement, to be a police officer, and that he threatened a shootout with the police. And his response was to produce a fake badge.
And so that really is how Senator Warnock is trying to frame this race, if you will. You know, he says that his opponent simply isn't ready for a job in the U.S. Senate. He questions his truthfulness. Herschel Walker continues to insist that he has been transparent, and even in a new interview, he doubled down on that badge, saying that this is real, it's legit, it's not fake. His campaign has said that it is an honorary badge that he has earned working with local police departments.
Nicole, this Senate race is not happening in a vacuum. It's happening simultaneous as a gubernatorial race in Georgia. But it just seems like they're on a different trajectory, these two races. Compare the two, the race for the rematch of the 2018 governor's race and this new Senate race.
Well, certainly in terms of the trajectory, a lot of the polling has shown a wider spread between Governor Brian Kemp and Stacey Abrams, the Democratic challenger. Of course, they both ran against each other back in 2018, where Abrams lost by just over a point. And so obviously, depending on which polls you look at, some show a closer race, some show a wider race. But what Stacey Abrams is trying to prove tonight is really trying to close that gap if she can, and try to boost turnout, especially now that voters are heading to the polls. Of course, Governor Kemp, who we spoke to the last time when we were here in Georgia, has really talked about his role in helping to turn the economy around. A lot of folks here in Georgia feel like things are going well, and so the governor feels that he deserves the credit for that in terms of reopening the state earlier in response to COVID compared to other states. And so you can probably expect him to continue to tout that part of his record tonight. We did speak to some voters about the race and what they're looking for this evening. So here's a sampling of that.
I hope to see Stacey do her usual thing. She's very articulate. She's very smart. And I'm really hoping that it is a debate where the two candidates respect one another.
I think Governor Kemp over the last 3 or 4 years, I mean, we're still one of the best states to do business in. It's hard to beat the progress that he's made in 4 years, you know, for the state and for employment. And our unemployment now is very low. So if it's not broke, don't fix it.
So really, there's a lot at stake in both of these races, a gubernatorial contest as well as a Senate race. And don't forget, Scott, there are also a number of House races that are quite interesting here in the state of Georgia as well. Voters here will have the next 3 weeks to cast their ballots if they choose to vote early. Otherwise, Election Day will be their final opportunity.
There's always that extra complication in Georgia. How much expectation or preparation is there for a runoff? For if neither candidate gets 50% and they got to run this thing back again after Election Day?
Well, it's certainly a possibility, especially in the Senate race, because if you look at a lot of the polling, we haven't seen either of the candidates poll above 50% in most instances. I believe our CBS News polling has showed Senator Warnock with a 51-point advantage to Herschel Walker's 49% a couple of weeks ago, but the majority of them continue to have them in the high 40s. And keep in mind, there's actually a third candidate in this race, a libertarian candidate by the name of Chase Oliver, who participated in a debate just yesterday. This was a debate that was held by the Atlanta Press Club that is usually kind of standard for Senate candidates. Herschel Walker declined the invitation for that event, but this libertarian candidate, Chase Oliver, did appear along with Senator Warnock. So, that also could have an impact on the final numbers. But either way, both of these campaigns, the Walker and Warnock campaigns, are taking the long view, knowing that a runoff could be a real possibility.
In Atlanta, for us, Nicole Killian, thank you very much. The latest in another race that could determine the balance of power in the U.S. Senate. We'll take you to Ohio next. You're streaming Red and Blue, reporting across the political divide.
an original CBS Reports documentary.
Yoga and wellness has become a place of anti-science.
Online clickbait.
The algorithms feed you content based upon your own fantasy.
Potentially at my peril.
There's no question about it.
Spreading digital disinformation.
Their entire yoga studio and spiritual community got so embedded in all of the QAnon stuff that it became this sick place.
Why pro-health people are fertile ground for anti-science messages.
We can just go into the whole mask thing. A lot of us just believe that's symbolism for silencing people.
People are locked in this mindset. They've been taught to accept what the medical doctors say.
No longer are you going to be willing to take any medical advice.
It's a big problem that we urgently need to address.
An original CBS Reports documentary streaming now. An original CBS Reports documentary.
We need to put an end to this territorial status.
Will statehood create a better Puerto Rico?
So that we have the same quality of life that you see in the States.
What do you worry about?
Me living here in the future?
They're giving incentives to non-Puerto Ricans to come to Puerto Rico
and extract our natural resources and take over our land.
Vacation in Puerto Rico, and in exchange for that, you don't pay taxes.
Why would I allow somebody who abused me for 123 years to then consume me?
An original CBS Reports documentary streaming now.
When weather turns extreme.
Massive and rapidly intensifying hurricane.
Every second counts.
Hurricane Fiona slams Puerto Rico with flooding and power outages.
CBS News and the Weather Channel bringing virtual weather technology so advanced, so real.
Well over 9 feet. This is not survivable.
You'll have time to get prepared.
You want to have the advantage on severe weather days.
It just may save your life.
Feel the forecast. Weather when it matters most on CBS Mornings.
People from every corner of America facing challenges.
Everyone is just looking for some type of connection.
Just raise your hand and say, hey, I'd like to help.
Coming together to find solutions.
We are going to do something about it.
Their stories are our stories.
Welcome to Eye on America.
Stream now on the free CBS News app.
We are so excited, we just can't hide it.
CBS Mornings are, well, everything your morning should be.
Let's do it!
Let's go!
CBS Mornings, starting at 7.
Stories that inform, inspire, and brighten your day.
I've been waiting patiently for something like this.
Make every day a little more like Sunday morning.
Here comes the sun.
Stream on the free CBS News app Tuesday mornings.
Welcome back to Red and Blue. I'm Scott McFarland. Let's go now to the Ohio Senate race. CBS News Chief Election and Campaign Correspondent Robert Costa is with us now from Youngstown, near the Pennsylvania border. So, Bob, you've been following the Ohio Senate race, which I think deserves the attention it's getting. This candidate the Democrats have put forward, Tim Ryan, the House member, the veteran House member, who the party believes is overachieving and really done stalwart work. The question is there any sense it's realistic the Democrats can take this state as the home stretch begins?
Scott, it's great to be with you from Youngstown, Ohio. Ohio, as you noted, is a Republican state, at least in recent cycles, won twice by then President Trump in 2016 and 2020, when he was candidate Trump in 16, then incumbent president in 2020. But Tim Ryan, the congressman from this area, the northeastern area of Ohio, the industrial northeastern part of the state, believes he does have a shot, and the polls back him up. We sat down with him in Cleveland earlier today, just hours after the Guardians and the Yankees played down the road, and he believes that he can appeal to working people in Ohio, and he can attract the Trump voter. So he's trying to build his own coalition, knowing it's a tough year for Democrats and that there are both economic and political headwinds.
That does feel like a pretty pivotal area in a rather large state, the Youngstown area, northeast Ohio. It's where his congressional district is, but it's also that subdivision of the state that has gone hard red from a traditional blue-collar union area over the last decade. Are you sensing that's where he's focusing his time, his energy, in that section of Ohio?
It's not just his time and energy he's focusing on here, it's his message. You hear from Congressman Ryan a real focus on trade He's critical of trade deals that he believes have brought manufacturing jobs out of northeastern Ohio. So this is someone who recognizes there was an Obama voter in Ohio that maybe in some respects migrated to being a Trump voter in recent cycles. He wants to bring them back into the Democratic fold. For Ryan, that's often a union voter in an industrial part of the state, a place like Youngstown that has really suffered, felt the economic pain. And he's talking about issues like inflation, knowing that the Democrats are in power and some voters may put the responsibility on them for the economic pain they're feeling. But he's also casting the Republican J.D. Vance, his opponent, as an extremist, someone who's very much a supplicant to Trump in Ryan's argument. And so tonight's debate, the final debate, the second debate here in Youngstown, we'll be covering it for CBS News in just about a couple hours, will be critical for Ryan because the polls show this is neck and neck, and he needs perhaps a big debate to start to get out some ground against J.D. Vance in a potential Republican year.
Let's flip the coin. What are you hearing from the Vance campaign? What are they messaging and where are they targeting their efforts?
They know that J.D. Vance had to build some support among Trump voters. This is someone in the primary race for the Senate Republican nomination, was not seen as a sure thing for the Trump vote. Trump ultimately came in and gave Vance his endorsement. That's been powerful for Vance. He's brought in a lot of Trump allies. Later this week, Senator Tom Cotton of Arkansas, Senator Tim Cotton of South Carolina, they will come into Ohio to campaign with Vance. That underscores how much the Trump wing of the party sees this as a critical race. And you see millions coming in, as Republican strategists and Democratic strategists tell me, money matters in Ohio. You have many media markets, Cincinnati, Columbus, Cleveland, among others. And Vance has a lot of money behind him. Billionaire Peter Thiel thrown a lot of money into this race through his aligned group. So has Senate Republican leader Mitch McConnell with his aligned groups.
It's always been one of the quirks of Ohio. I remember when I covered one of the U.S. Senate races of the past, one of the campaign staffers told me there are a dozen media markets we have to cover if you count the little ones outside the state perimeter that reach parts of Ohio, which makes it complicated to run a statewide race in Ohio. I'm wondering how much of this outside money that's come into the J.D. Vance campaign is coming in because they sensed a disadvantage. They sensed either a competitive Tim Ryan or a money differential they had to help bridge.
There's a lot of concern among Republicans, both in Ohio and in Pennsylvania, that the Democratic candidates in Pennsylvania, John Fetterman, in Ohio, Tim Ryan, could pull off upsets if they're able to win over some independent voters at the end by galvanizing core Democratic voters and some independents on an issue like abortion rights and being able to counter the Republican message on the economy. These are two razor-thin races at this point in the Pennsylvania Senate race and here in Ohio, races that will really tell us about where the industrial Midwest of this country is moving politically in the coming year.
Just 30 seconds left, Bob. What do you expect Ryan to press at the debate tonight? Abortion rights or try to win back some of the economy message?
So much of this is about the economy, kitchen table issues, how voters feel about the price of fuel, the price of groceries. Yes, Ryan will likely talk about abortion rights. It's a way of reminding Democratic voters of the states and some independents and Republicans who support that position. But at the end of the day, so many Ohio voters told me in the last 24 hours and in recent months, it's about the economy.
Robert Costa on the road in Youngstown. Thank you very much. We turn now to CBS News' senior White House and political correspondent, Ed O'Keefe, who's at the White House. Ed, we know the president has been seeking to hit the trail, try to help some of these candidates win their races. Where does the president's campaign schedule stand?
Well, it was a subject of conversation around here today, Scott, because while he spent several days last week in western states, Colorado, California, and Oregon, helping Democrats in need of a little presidential lift, at this point, it's a bit scant. And in talking to aides here at the White House, they're not even entirely clear where he may be headed next. Tomorrow, he's doing something interesting here in Washington, giving a speech at a downtown theater on the topic of abortion rights, which, of course, is important to a lot of Democratic voters, to women who lean Democratic, left-leaning independents. But that our poll over the weekend and others released today show is not necessarily a top-of-mind issue anymore as much as it might have been over the summer. The president, the Democratic National Committee trying to boost interest, concern, and awareness about that, of course, and remind people of the potential for Republican-controlled state governments to dramatically rewrite abortion laws in the wake of the Roe v. Wade decision. Later this week, he goes to Pennsylvania. He'll stop first in the Pittsburgh area, then head to Philadelphia for a fundraiser with John Fetterman, the Democratic Senate candidate. And after that, we don't have anything on the calendar until November 1st, when he goes to Florida for a similar closed-door fundraiser for Charlie Crist, who's trailing Republican Governor Ron DeSantis in a series of polls. We mentioned the fact that the president has spent most of his campaign time this year, at least this fall, in blue states like New York, New Jersey, Maryland, Massachusetts, Colorado, Oregon, California. What gives? Why did he do that? Listen to what Karine Jean-Pierre, the White House press secretary, had to say about it earlier today. There's a White House Office of Political Affairs, and they've been getting phone calls from candidates in some of those other states, Arizona, Nevada, Georgia, Wisconsin, Michigan, to say, we'd love to have the president come.
Look, I don't have any calls to read out. We don't have any calls or personal conversations to read out. Look, the way we see it, and the president has been traveling nonstop. He did a great job laying out the places that he's been to, and he's going to continue to be on the road nonstop. That is not going to stop. As you noted, we announced that we're going to Pennsylvania and Florida. Look, he's going to go where he is needed the most.
Part of why we ask about his schedules, he's already scheduled to be in Delaware again this weekend, for example, a weekend that is a big, just as an example, early vote kickoff weekend in Nevada, where normally Democrats might try to put all their muscle and their firepower to try to convince Democratic voters, independent voters, to show up in that state. He's not necessarily, he has no plans to be in Nevada or Arizona or Georgia, those states with key battleground Senate races and governor's races. No plan to go to Ohio, where Costa is today. No plan to go right now to Wisconsin or Michigan. But look there in the green. Look who is going there. Former President Obama planning to spend some time there in the coming weeks to rally voters in those states by going to Atlanta, Milwaukee, and Detroit specifically. Those are trips that are in part designed to boost African-American turnout in races where they're going to be critical to help people like Gretchen Whitmer, the governor of Michigan, who's looking for a big win, Mandela Barnes, the Senate candidate running against Ron Johnson, or, of course, Raphael Warnock, the senator from Georgia, Stacey Abrams, the gubernatorial candidate. Seems they're willing to be seen with the former president, not necessarily with the current one.
The First Lady has plans to campaign as well, right?
She does, and she's actually now emerged, in addition to the former president, as one of the top and most sought-after Democratic surrogates. She spent part of the weekend in Florida, in the Orlando area, with Val Demings, the Democrat running against Senator Marco Rubio. Checked with her office today. They confirmed there will be more travel in the coming weeks, and continue to listen for her to say things like, Joe is delivering results. That's the message she's trying to tell voters. My husband's done a bunch of things that help your bottom line, that have done other things to turn around the country after the pandemic hit us hard. Expect her to see her continue doing that. Talk about the potential dangers of a Republican-controlled Congress, and on the issue, again, of abortion, which the president himself will be talking about on Tuesday at that DNC event. It's no surprise that the presidential spouse can sometimes be a more sought-after, easier out-of-town surrogate to campaign with. She is the First Lady. Her numbers are better than her husband's in most surveys. She's also, though, a relatively political unknown across the country, not necessarily as widely known or understood as some past First Ladies. That's by design, because she keeps a day job and can't necessarily keep a public schedule. She's still a professor at a Northern Virginia community college, but they are making time in her schedule amid her teaching schedule to get her out there. She was at the Eagles game, for example, last night, singing Fly, Eagles, Fly with those misguided fans. Scott?
Lots of people were singing Fly, Eagles, Fly last night. Clearly not a misguided fan. Not Ed O'Keefe. Masterful work at the White House, Ed. Thank you very much.
Take care.
Congressional records show Trump hotels and properties charged Secret Service agents 5 times the normal government rate for accommodations while protecting him. What the Trump Organization is saying next. You're streaming Red and Blue.
thinking about it.
Everybody wakes up in the morning and they are pelted with alerts that frighten them, news that agitates them. With this show, we have the time to explain what's going on. These migrants, they've been released. Explain the status that allows them to be released, to slow things down a little bit. What are the big sets of questions for China and its ambitions? Hackers are stepping up their attacks to extort victims. Let's start with easy. Who's attacking? Here's a deeper understanding of what's happening.
I'm thinking about it.
Prime Time with John Dickerson. Stream on the free CBS News app. An original documentary from CBS reports tensions rising between a powerful country and a vital island.
The supply of this technology came grinding to a halt. The world would grind to a halt.
Absolutely. As Taiwan faces threats and aggression,
Taiwan is on the front line, and we understand our responsibility as a democracy. We cannot fall.
CBS News examines whether they can defend themselves.
Putin, Ukraine, China, Taiwan, they are manifestations of the battle between autocracy and democracy. And that is a fight that we're all engaged in.
Defending Taiwan, now streaming on the free CBS News app.
When weather turns extreme,
Massive and rapidly intensifying hurricane.
every second counts.
Hurricane Fiona slams Puerto Rico with flooding and power outages.
CBS News and the Weather Channel bringing virtual weather technology so advanced, so real.
Well over 9 feet. This is not survivable.
You'll have time to get prepared.
You want to have the advantage on severe weather days.
It just may save your life.
Feel the forecast. Weather when it matters most on CBS Mornings.
People from every corner of America facing challenges.
Everyone is just looking for some type of connection.
Just raise your hand and say, hey, I'd like to help.
Coming together to find solutions.
We are going to do something about it.
Their stories are our stories.
Welcome to Eye on America.
Stream now on the free CBS News app.
When it comes to the money you spend every day, we have you covered every morning. Making money makes sense. Weekdays on CBS Mornings.
After decades in the public eye and public service, this mother-daughter duo is now talking about gutsy women. What's the gutsiest thing you've ever done? We go person to person with Secretary Hillary Rodham Clinton and Chelsea Clinton.
Now streaming on the free CBS News app.
Stories that inform, inspire, and brighten your day.
I've been waiting patiently for something like this.
Make every day a little more like Sunday morning.
Here comes the sun.
Stream on the free CBS News app Tuesday mornings.
Welcome back to Red and Blue. I'm Scott McFarland. Before we go, a quick run through of some recent developments in the swirl of lawsuits and legal probes facing former President Trump. We're awaiting an official subpoena from the House January 6 committee for the former president. The committee voted unanimously in favor of one last week during what was likely their last public hearing before the midterms. Newly obtained documents show the Trump organization charged the Secret Service as much as 5 times the government rate for accommodations while protecting him and his family. According to the record shared by the House Oversight Committee, the Secret Service paid the former president's organization more than $1.4 million during his 4 years in office. At least 40 of those stays at Trump hotels cost way above the allowable government rate. In one instance, Secret Service was charged $1,100 to stay at a Trump hotel in D.C. while protecting his son, Eric. And the Justice Department is recommending half a year in prison for former White House aide and Trump campaign advisor Steve Bannon. Sentencing is set for Friday in Bannon's contempt of Congress case. He was convicted earlier this year for defying the House January 6 committee, and in its filing to the court, the Justice Department argues Bannon has used hyperbolic, sometimes violent rhetoric to disparage the committee's investigation, personally attacking the committee's members and ridiculing the criminal justice system. Bannon is asking for a sentence of probation and is signaling he will appeal his case. That does it for today. You can stream Red and Blue Monday to Thursday at 5 p.m. Eastern. And a reminder, if you want to watch previous episodes of the program, you can see them anytime on the CBS News website. Just head to cbsnews.com/redandblue.
an original CBS Reports documentary.
Yoga and wellness has become a place of anti-science.
Online clickbait.
The algorithms feed you content based upon your own fantasy.
Potentially at my